Captain John Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the Starship Endeavour, watching as the massive Galactic Council station grew larger in the viewscreen. After decades of humanity watching the stars and being watched in return, this moment marked their official introduction to the wider galactic community. "Nervous, Captain?" Lisa Garcia asked, joining him at the window. As the mission's diplomatic officer, she would bear much of the responsibility for first impressions. "Cautiously optimistic," John replied, straightening his uniform. 17 advanced civilizations working together in relative peace. "It's what we've always hoped was possible." Science Officer Alan Beck approached, tablet in hand. "Final scans confirm the station's composition matches what they shared in the briefing materials. No obvious defensive posturing or weapons locks." John nodded. "Let's hope that remains the case." The Endeavour docked with practiced precision. John led his small delegation through the airlock, where they were met by representatives of the Council races. The aliens varied wildly in appearance, some insectoid, others vaguely reptilian, a few almost human-like save for coloration or proportions. A tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms stepped forward. "I am Vexilor, Council Liaison for New Species." "Integration. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we welcome humanity to the greater community of spacefaring civilizations." Lisa stepped forward with a diplomatic bow. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we are honored to join you and look forward to peaceful cooperation." The welcome ceremony proceeded smoothly, with each council representative offering formal greetings. Only the Zarthak delegation seemed reserved, their gray, angular faces remaining expressionless as they performed the minimum required protocols. Later, as the human delegation was shown to their quarters, Alan whispered to John, "Did you notice the Zarthak? Barely acknowledged us." "Noted," John replied quietly. "But let's not read too much into first meetings. We're here for the long game." The long game, as it turned out, would test humanity's patience beyond what any of them had anticipated. 3. Months into negotiations for Earth's integration into Council trade networks, Lisa was growing frustrated. She sat across from the Trade Committee, once again facing inexplicable delays. The proposed shipping routes through Sector 873 require additional safety inspections, the Zarthak representative stated flatly. "Perhaps in another 6 months we can revisit this proposal." "That's the 4th route designation you've rejected," Lisa noted calmly, though her fingers gripped her tablet tightly. "Our colony on Europa has mining resources several Council worlds have expressed interest in. Without approved trade routes, those materials sit unused." The Moravian representative, a furry humanoid with large eyes, looked uncomfortable but remained silent. Lisa had noticed this pattern. Several species seemed sympathetic to human positions, but deferred to Zarthak objections. "Safety protocols must be followed," the Zarthak replied without elaboration. Later that evening, Lisa met with John in the secure conference room aboard the Endeavour. "Something isn't right," she said, pacing the small space. "Every proposal we make faces the same pattern of delays and rejections. But when I speak privately with the Belari or Moravian representatives, they hint they would welcome trade with Earth colonies." John reviewed the reports from human outposts. "It's not just happening here. Our asteroid mining operations report equipment failures after Zarthak ships pass through the area. Nothing provable, but the pattern is becoming clear." "Why would they invite us to join the Council only to sabotage our integration?" Alan asked, looking up from his data analysis. "Information gathering, perhaps," John suggested. "Or they want to keep us contained where they can watch us." Lisa sighed. "Whatever their reasons, we need to continue diplomatic efforts. Earth's instructions are clear. Maintain peaceful relations at almost any cost. The last thing humanity needs is an interstellar conflict when we've barely established ourselves beyond our solar system." "Patience," John agreed. "For now." 2 years passed with the same pattern. Humanity maintained its diplomatic presence, filed formal complaints through proper channels, and watched those complaints disappear into bureaucratic voids. Earth colonies struggled under unofficial embargoes, while Council representatives maintained a facade of cooperative relations. Lieutenant Kevin Ford, recently assigned to the Endeavour as security analyst, brought John his latest findings. Captain, I've been tracking energy signatures near our outposts. There's a pattern of Zarthak vessels passing within sensor range shortly before equipment malfunctions. John reviewed the data. Still circumstantial, but the statistical probability of coincidence is becoming negligible. Earth Command wants us to maintain course, Lisa reminded them. Collect evidence, follow procedures. Kevin looked frustrated but nodded. Yes, ma'am. The Endeavour continued its mission, rotating crew members as the months stretched on. John sent increasingly urgent reports back to Earth, warning that patience without progress was becoming untenable, but the response remained the same. Maintain diplomatic relations, avoid provocation. The explosion at Outpost Horizon changed everything. John was awakened by the emergency alert at 0300 station time. He rushed to the bridge, finding his officers, already at their stations, faces grim. Report, he ordered, taking his chair. Distress signal from Horizon Research Station, the communications officer replied. Then nothing. We've lost all contact. Sensor readings show a massive energy release consistent with reactor failure, Allen reported, his voice tight. The station's gone, sir. 47 scientists, 13 family members, including children, all gone. How does a state-of-the-art reactor just fail? John demanded. That station had triple redundancies. Unknown, sir, Allen replied. We're authorized to investigate. The Endeavour reached the debris field 6 hours later. As the only human military vessel in this sector, they were first on scene. A Zarthak observation vessel arrived shortly after, offering condolences and assistance. We respectfully decline, John told the Zarthak captain flatly. We'll handle our own investigation. For 3 days, they collected debris and data while recovery ships arrived from Earth to search for remains. On the third day, Lieutenant Kevin Ford requested an urgent private meeting with John and Lisa. In the secure room, Kevin displayed a sensor reading. I found this in the logs. A Zarthak energy signature, very faint near the station 12 minutes before the explosion. Then it vanishes. That's not proof, Lisa said cautiously. It could be coincidence. Maybe, Kevin agreed. But I also found this. He displayed a fragment analysis. These trace particles don't match any component from our reactor technology, but they are consistent with Zarthak energy weapons. John stared at the evidence, his expression hardening. Send everything to Earth Command, encrypted channel, and not a word of this to anyone else. 2 weeks later, Earth's official statement called the Horizon incident a tragic accident. But behind closed doors, military leaders began questioning how much more patience humanity could afford. As John wrote in his personal log that night, there is a line between patience and foolishness, between diplomacy and surrender. I fear we approach that line, and I fear what happens when humanity finally loses its patience. 6 months after the Horizon disaster, the walls of Admiral Mary Daniels's office on Earth were covered with displays. Some showed status reports from human colonies struggling under hidden embargoes. Others tracked ship movements near human territories. A large central screen displayed a timer, 185 days since the loss of Outpost Horizon. The Admiral's dark hair was pulled back tightly, her uniform crisp despite the early hour. Our patience is becoming a liability, she said to the 3 officers seated before her. Commander Paul Wright nodded. The military strategist had spent the last 4 months analyzing Council species weaknesses while officially working on defensive protocols. The Council knows we know, he said. They just don't think we'll do anything about it. Dr. Olivia Nash, a civilian specialist with expertise in artificial intelligence, looked up from her tablet. My team has mapped their communication networks. If authorized, we could deploy the truth protocols. Not yet, Admiral Daniels replied. We maintain diplomatic efforts until ordered otherwise, but we will be ready. She turned to the third person in the room. Major Diaz, status of your teams? Major Frank Diaz was compact and quiet, head of the recently formed Special Operations Division. Strike plans completed for 16 primary targets, Teams can deploy within 12 hours of authorization. Admiral Daniels nodded. We hope for peace but prepare for all outcomes. Dismissed. As they filed out, she called Commander Wright back. Paul, how long have we known each other? 20 years, Admiral. Then I'll speak plainly. If diplomacy fails, can we win? Paul's expression was grim but certain. They believe we've shown them all our capabilities. They have no idea what we've been holding back. On the Galactic Council station, Lisa Garcia entered yet another negotiation session. 6 months of investigating the Horizon disaster had yielded mountains of evidence, all pointing to deliberate sabotage. Today, she would present the findings to the full council. The chamber was arranged in tiered seating, with representatives from all 17 council species present. Lisa stood at the center, alone. Representatives of the Galactic Council, she began. I present evidence regarding the destruction of Human Research Station Horizon. For the next hour, she methodically displayed sensor readings, material analyses, and reconstruction simulations. The evidence showed Zarthak energy signatures near the station before the explosion and weapon particles in the debris. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. Finally, the council chairperson, a tall Bellari, spoke. We have reviewed your presentation, Diplomatic Officer Garcia. While concerning, the evidence is inconclusive. Inconclusive? Lisa fought to keep her voice even. We have energy signatures, weapons residue. The Zarthak representative interrupted. Energy signatures that could be misinterpreted by less advanced scanning technology. As for the debris analysis, perhaps your scientists are unfamiliar with how certain elements react during a reactor failure. Lisa stared in disbelief. Are you suggesting human incompetence caused the disaster? Not incompetence, the Zarthak replied smoothly. Inexperience. Newer species often struggle with advanced technologies. Several council members shifted uncomfortably, but none spoke in her defense. Even the Bellari and Moravians, who had privately expressed sympathy, remained silent. Lisa gathered her materials with steady hands despite her anger. The United Earth government will be disappointed by the council's response. That evening, Lisa sat alone in her quarters when her secure communication system activated. Admiral Daniels' face appeared on the screen. Status report. Diplomatic. Officer, the Admiral said formally, aware that even secure channels might be monitored. Complete diplomatic failure, Lisa replied. They dismissed all evidence and suggested human error caused the Horizon incident. The Admiral's expression hardened slightly. I see. And your assessment of future diplomatic progress? Lisa chose her words carefully. I believe we have reached the limits of what can be accomplished through current channels. A moment of silence passed between them. They both understood what this meant. Acknowledged, Admiral Daniels finally said. Return to Earth immediately for debriefing. Daniels out. Lisa began packing her few personal items. 3 years of diplomatic service, ending like this. She felt a complex mixture of failure and relief. The next morning, as Lisa's shuttle prepared for departure, an emergency alert sounded throughout the station. Council members rushed to the Central Command Center where view screens showed a distress call playing on repeat. This is Captain Andrea Wilson of Colonial Transport Northern Star. We are under attack. 2 unmarked vessels firing on us. We have civilians aboard. Please. The transmission dissolved into static. The Bellari chairperson turned to the station commander. Location? Sector 42B, near the approved human settlement corridor. 2 other human vessels are also broadcasting distress signals from nearby locations. The Zarthak representative stepped forward. Pirates, perhaps. That sector has seen similar activity. Lisa pushed through the gathered officials. Those are colony ships. There are families aboard. The council members avoided her gaze. The Moravian representative finally spoke. We will dispatch investigation teams immediately. Your investigation teams will find debris and bodies, Lisa said coldly. The Northern Star carried 380 civilians. The other ships had similar numbers. Many were children. She turned and left, without waiting for a response. In her shuttle, Lisa received the confirmed reports. All 3 colony ships destroyed. Over 200 civilians dead, including more than 300 children. Weapon signatures matched those found at Outpost Horizon. Her communication system activated. Admiral Daniels' face appeared, grim and resolute. "You've heard?" Lisa asked. "I've heard," the Admiral confirmed. The Northern Star transmitted images of the attacking vessels before destruction, unmarked but with Zarthak design signatures. Lisa closed her eyes briefly. "Colony ships. Children." "Yes." The Admiral's voice was tight with controlled anger. "The attackers made sure there were no survivors this time. What happens now?" Admiral Daniels looked directly into the camera. "Diplomacy has failed. Return immediately. Humanity's patience has run out." As Lisa's shuttle pulled away from the station, she could see council representatives gathering in meeting chambers through the large observation windows. They appeared to be in heated discussion. They're debating whether humans are emotionally mature enough for galactic civilization, Lisa told the Admiral, having overheard comments to that effect before leaving. "They're about to find out exactly how mature we are," Admiral Daniels replied, "and exactly what happens when human patience ends." Behind Lisa, the Galactic Council station grew smaller in the viewport. None of its occupants noticed the small devices her team had left behind during their stay, dormant until now. None of them realized that for 3 years, while patiently enduring insults and obstacles, humanity had been preparing for this day. The day patience ended. Admiral Daniels stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. Around her, dozens of officers monitored screens, showing ship positions throughout Council space. The room hummed with quiet intensity. "Operation Silent Thunder is now active," she announced. The word sent a ripple through the room. After years of diplomatic restraint, humanity was finally responding. Commander Paul Wright stepped forward, activating the main tactical display. "Phase 1 begins now. All civilian-appearing vessels are in position." These civilian ships had been placed strategically throughout Council space over the past year. Disguised as trading vessels, research ships, and transport shuttles, they carried advanced weapons systems hidden behind false hulls and sensor-blocking technology. "Phase 1, execute," Admiral Daniels ordered. Across Council space, 57 human vessels simultaneously dropped their disguises. Weapons systems came online, targeting communication arrays, defense platforms, and military shipyards. Not to destroy them, yet, but to demonstrate the ability to do so. In the Zarthak home system, 4 mining ships that had been conducting resource surveys for months revealed themselves as military vessels directly above key defense installations. Paulie smiled grimly. "Phase 1 complete. All targets acquired. No defensive movements detected from Council forces." They were completely surprised. "Dr. Nash, proceed with Phase 2, Admiral Daniels said. Olivia Nash nodded and began typing commands into her console. For 3 years, her team had been placing dormant AI systems throughout Council networks, not as weapons or spies, but as truth-tellers. "Activation complete," she reported. "Truth protocols running." Throughout Council space, on every planet, moon and station, communication systems suddenly activated. Screens displayed the same message. "The following is factual evidence of actions taken against human vessels and colonies." What followed was unedited footage of the attacks on Outpost Horizon and the 3 colony ships. The footage included sensor data proving Zarthak involvement, communications between Zarthak vessels during the attacks, and images of the victims, including children boarding the colony ships before departure. The broadcast continued with evidence of trade sabotage, diplomatic manipulation, and the deliberate isolation of human colonies. All the evidence that Council leadership had dismissed was now being shown to every citizen of every species. "Truth hurts," Olivia said quietly. "Major Diaz, proceed with Phase 3, Admiral Daniels ordered. Frank Diaz's normally expressionless face showed the smallest hint of satisfaction. "Special Forces teams deploying now." On the Zarthak military base in the Tauros system, alarms suddenly blared. Security forces rushed to defensive positions, expecting an attack from space. Instead, the attack came from within. Human Special Forces teams inserted months earlier as maintenance workers and service personnel moved with precision through the massive complex. Their targets were not the Zarthak themselves, but their weapons systems. Similar operations unfolded simultaneously on 12 other key Zarthak military installations. The human teams moved like ghosts, disabling planetary defense systems, communications arrays, and weapons platforms. They used non-lethal methods where possible, incapacitating rather than killing Zarthak personnel. On the central Zarthak military command station, Major Frank Diaz personally led the most critical team. They seized the main control center in under 4 minutes, with only 2 Zarthak guards suffering minor injuries. "This facility is now under human control," Frank announced to the stunned Zarthak officers. "You will not be harmed if you cooperate." One of the Zarthak commanders recovered from his shock enough to speak. "How did you infiltrate our most secure installation?" Frank allowed himself a small smile. "We've been here for months. You were so convinced of human technological inferiority that you never considered we might already be inside your defenses." He activated his communication device. Phase 3 complete. All primary targets secured. In space, the Galactic Council was in chaos. The truth broadcast had thrown the carefully maintained facade of unity into disarray. Several species were demanding explanations from Zarthak representatives, who found themselves unable to deny the evidence being shown throughout Council space. The Bellari chairperson called an emergency session, but halfway through, reports began arriving of human special forces taking control of key military installations throughout Zarthak territory. "This is an act of war," the Zarthak representative shouted. The Moravian representative stood up. Was destroying their research station not an act of war? Were the colony ship attacks not acts of war? You have brought this upon yourselves. Before the argument could continue, space traffic controllers reported a new development. A fleet of warships had appeared at the edge of the system. Human warships, unlike any design previously shown to the Council. Leading the fleet was the Endeavor, Captain John Mitchell commanding. "This is Captain John Mitchell of United Earth Defense Force." His voice came through on all communication channels. "We have disabled Zarthak military capacity at key points throughout Council space. We have exposed the truth of their actions against human vessels and colonies. Now we offer a choice." Admiral Daniels watched the transmission from Earth. John was performing his role perfectly. The captain who had endured 3 years of diplomatic insults now returned at the head of a powerful fleet. "You mistook patience for weakness," Johnny continued. "Restraint for inability, diplomacy for surrender, that was your mistake." His image was replaced by schematics of Council species vessels, with key vulnerabilities highlighted. "During our years of diplomatic integration, we mapped every weakness in your ships, stations, and defense systems. We identified every critical supply line and power node. We learned your languages, cultures, and thought patterns." The display changed again, showing the positions of human forces throughout Council space. "We could have struck at any time. Instead, we waited. We followed your rules. We filed complaints. We showed patience. And for that patience, our people were killed." Admiral Daniels nodded in satisfaction. The years of restraint, of absorbing insults and attacks while preparing in secret, had led to this moment. A moment when humanity revealed its true capabilities. "Your choice is simple," John concluded. "End all aggressive actions against human vessels and colonies. Acknowledge the truth of what has been done. Agree to fair treatment and representation within the Council. Do these things and we will withdraw our forces without further action." He paused, his expression hardening. "Refuse and you will learn what happens when human patience truly ends. You have 1 hour to respond." The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. The Bellari chairperson turned to the Zarthak representative. "Is what they showed true? Did your forces attack their colonies?" The Zarthak representative didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice had lost its usual confidence. "We may have underestimated them." On the Endeavor, John Mitchell stood on the bridge, watching the council station on the view screen. After 3 years of diplomatic frustration, of watching humans die while maintaining a facade of cooperation, this moment felt like finally being able to breathe. "Communications officer, any response yet?" he asked. "Not yet, sir. 53 minutes remaining." John nodded. "Maintain alert status. They're likely trying to find some way out of this situation." Commander Susan Ward, his executive officer, spoke quietly. "Do you think they'll agree to the terms?" "They have no choice," John replied. "That's the beauty of Operation Silent Thunder. We didn't start with violence. We started with truth." The council chamber erupted into arguments as the 1-hour deadline approached. The Zarthak delegation found themselves increasingly isolated as other species moved away from them, both physically and politically. "You assured us humans were primitive and no threat," said the Moravian representative, her fur bristling with anger. "Now we face potential war because of your deception." The Bellari chairperson raised all 4 of his slender arms for silence. "We must respond to the human ultimatum. We have 15 minutes remaining." "We cannot surrender to their demands," the Zarthak representative insisted. "It would show weakness to a lesser species." The Bellari's compound eyes flashed with irritation. "Lesser? Their Operation Silent Thunder has revealed sophisticated planning and technology far beyond what you claimed they possessed. They infiltrated our most secure systems while we believed they were struggling with basic space travel." A new voice joined the conversation. The representative of the Colonian people, who rarely spoke at council meetings, stood up. The small, green-skinned alien's voice was surprisingly firm. "I move to accept the human terms and open an investigation into Zarthak actions against human colonies." The motion spread quickly through the chamber. Species that had remained silent during years of human diplomatic efforts now rushed to distance themselves from the Zarthak. "Cowards," hissed the Zarthak representative. "The mighty council, afraid of humans?" The Moravian representative stepped directly in front of him. "Not afraid. Ashamed. We watched your treatment of humans and said nothing. We are complicit in your actions." With 5 minutes remaining, the council voted. 14 species supported accepting human terms. 2 remained neutral. Only the Zarthak opposed. The Bellari chairperson drafted the response himself, sending it through all available channels to the human fleet. On the Endeavor, John read the council's message with satisfaction. "They've accepted our terms. The council will acknowledge Zarthak responsibility for attacks on human vessels and begin negotiations for fair treatment." His bridge crew maintained professional composure, but he could see relief in their expressions. No one wanted full-scale war. "Transmit to all human forces. Maintain positions but stand down from combat readiness," John ordered. "And inform Earth Command of the Council's response." As his communications officer carried out these instructions, warning signals suddenly blared across the bridge. "Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel," reported the sensor officer. "Zarthak warships, heavily armed. They're on an intercept course." John's expression hardened. "Shields up. Battle stations." The view screen showed a dozen Zarthak battlecruisers approaching rapidly. These weren't the unmarked vessels used in previous attacks, but the official Zarthak military fleet. Message. "From Zarthak Fleet Commander," the communications officer announced. "Text only. It says, humans must be eliminated before they threaten galactic stability." John exchanged glances with Commander Ward. "The Council voted to accept our terms. This appears to be a rogue action by Zarthak military leadership. Shall I contact the Council for clarification?" asked the communications officer. "No time," John replied as the enemy ships accelerated toward them. "All vessels, defensive formation. Prepare to engage but hold fire until fired upon. We won't be the ones to start this fight." In the council chamber, alarm sounded as Space Traffic Control reported Zarthak warships engaging the human fleet. "What is the meaning of this?" the Bellari chairperson demanded of the Zarthak representative. "We voted to accept their terms." The Zarthak's expression showed genuine confusion. "I received no communication about fleet deployment. This must be Supreme Command acting independently. Independently, repeated the Moravian representative in disbelief. They're starting an interstellar war independently. The Bellari chairperson quickly activated the emergency broadcast system. Attention, Zarthak fleet. Stand down immediately. Your actions are not authorized by the Galactic Council. On the main view screen, they watched the Zarthak ships continuing their approach toward the human fleet. The order was being ignored. They plan to eliminate humanity as a threat, said the Colonian representative quietly. They fear what humans might become. The Zarthak ships opened fire first. Energy beams lanced toward the human fleet, targeting the Endeavor specifically. Evasive action, John ordered calmly. The Endeavor moved with surprising speed and agility for its size, the beam missing by mere meters. Return fire. Defensive pattern only, John commanded. Target weapon systems and engines. Minimize casualties. The human ships responded with precision. Their weapons were unlike anything the Council had seen before. Adaptive energy pulses that seemed to predict and counter Zarthak shield frequencies. On the Zarthak flagship, Grand Admiral Kevlar watched in growing alarm as human vessels executed maneuvers his tactical officers had declared physically impossible. How are they changing direction so rapidly? He demanded. Our targeting systems cannot lock on. Unknown, Grand Admiral, his science officer replied. Their propulsion technology appears to operate on principles we haven't encountered. A massive explosion rocked the flagship as a human vessel half their size somehow penetrated their forward shields. Weapons systems damaged, reported the tactical officer. Forward batteries offline. The Grand Admiral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 of his ships were already disabled, their engines and weapons destroyed with surgical precision. The humans were deliberately avoiding crew sections, taking extra risk to minimize Zarthak casualties. Order all ships to concentrate fire on the Endeavor, he commanded. Destroy their flagship. In Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral Daniels received real-time updates of the battle. Zarthak forces are focusing on the Endeavor, she told her staff. Captain Mitchell expected this. Activate Phase 4. Commander Paul Wright nodded and sent the coded signal. Throughout the battle zone, human ships suddenly changed formation. What had appeared to be random defensive positioning was revealed as a carefully choreographed trap. As the Zarthak ships concentrated their attack on the Endeavor, they exposed their flanks to the rest of the human fleet. Precision strikes, disabled. Engines and weapon systems on 9 more Zarthak vessels in under 2 minutes. The Zarthak flagship found itself suddenly alone, its escort vessels drifting powerless in space. Send the message, Admiral Daniels ordered. On his crippled flagship, Grand Admiral Kevlar received the human transmission. Captain John Mitchell's face appeared on his screen. This battle is over, John said simply. Your fleet is disabled. You fought with courage but without wisdom. Kevlar's pride warred with his tactical assessment. No Grand Admiral had ever surrendered in Zarthak history. How? He finally asked. How could a species so young advance so quickly? The human captain's expression remained calm. You gave us no choice. Humanity achieves in adversity what we never would in comfort. In trying to hold us back, you accelerated exactly what you feared. Kevlar looked at the status displays. His mighty fleet drifted powerless, yet the human weapons had carefully avoided crew quarters and life support systems. Even in victory, they showed restraint. I will accept terms of surrender, the Grand Admiral said finally. For my fleet only. I cannot speak for all Zarthak forces. John nodded. Your fleet will be escorted to Council space. Your crews will not be harmed. The Council will determine next steps regarding Zarthak leadership. As the transmission ended, Kevlar gazed out at the stars. The Zarthak had ruled space for centuries. They had thought humans primitive, emotional, and impulsive. Yet in just 3 years, these newcomers had mapped Zarthak weaknesses, infiltrated their systems, and defeated their finest fleet. All because the Zarthak had mistaken patience for weakness. 1 year after Operation Silent Thunder, the former Council space looked very different. The massive station that once housed the Galactic Council now served as headquarters for the new interstellar cooperative. The grand chamber where species once argued over policies had been redesigned with equal seating for all member species, including humans. Admiral Mary Daniels walked through the corridors, nodding to representatives of various species as she passed. As Earth's official representative to the cooperative, she had spent the last year helping build a new framework for interstellar relations. The Bellari representative, now her close ally, joined her path. The reconstruction of the Orion sector colony is proceeding well, he said, falling into step beside her. The Zarthak reparation payments have funded most of the work. Good, Mary replied. Those families lost everything. It's only fair they receive the first benefits of the new arrangement. They entered a meeting room where representatives from 9 former council species waited. These were the species who had broken with the Zarthak-dominated council during the crisis and become founding members of the cooperative alongside humanity. The border security protocols are ready for final approval, Mary announced, taking her seat. All member species will share responsibility for patrol duties. The Moravian representative nodded in satisfaction. A significant improvement over the old system where Zarthak forces controlled all major trade routes. Speaking of the Zarthak, said the Colonian representative, their new leadership has requested full membership in the cooperative. A brief silence fell over the room. The Zarthak, once the dominant power in galactic politics, had spent the past year isolated and internally divided. Their military leadership had been removed, their hidden weapons programs exposed, and their economy damaged by reparation payments to human colonies. Mary considered the request carefully. The purpose of the cooperative is inclusion, not punishment. If they accept our founding principles of transparency and equal standing, I believe we should consider their application. The others agreed, though some with visible reluctance. The scars of centuries of Zarthak dominance would not heal quickly. Very well, Mary concluded. We'll review their formal application next session. Now, let's discuss the exploration initiative. Captain John Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, watching as his ship approached a previously restricted region of space. Under the old council, this sector had been declared off-limits to younger species, like humans. Now, as head of the Cooperative's Exploration Division, John led the effort to explore these hidden regions. Scanners detecting unusual energy signatures, Captain, reported his science officer. Similar to ancient technology we found in the Proxima system. John nodded. Proceed with caution. The Bellari records suggest this area may contain technology from the predecessor civilization. The mythical predecessors had allegedly ruled the galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind technology that the Zarthak had hoarded for centuries. Access to these technological remnants explained many of the Zarthak's advantages they had kept from lesser species. It appears to be some kind of automated factory system, the science officer continued. Still operational after all this time. John smiled slightly. Document everything and prepare a research team. All findings will be shared with all cooperative members as agreed. This was perhaps the most significant change from the old order. Knowledge and technology would no longer be hoarded by any single species. The principles of the interstellar cooperative required full sharing of discoveries. Message from cooperative headquarters, sir, announced the communications officer. Lisa Garcia requests your presence at the diplomatic conference next week. John's smile widened. Tell her I'll be there. The Endeavour will complete this survey and return to base. Lisa Garcia stood before a classroom of children on the joint colony world of New Harmony. The classroom contained human children alongside young Bellari, Moravians, and even a few Zarthak. As the overseer of new diplomatic protocols, she frequently visited educational facilities to see how the next generation was adapting to the new reality. Can anyone tell me why we call it the Patience War? She asked the class. A young human girl raised her hand. Because humans were patient for a long time before fighting back? That's part of it. Lisa nodded. Anyone else? A Zarthak child. Looking uncomfortable as the only one of his species in the class, slowly raised his hand. The other children looked at him with surprise. Because patience was the real weapon, he said quietly. Humans didn't win because they had better ships or guns. They won because they waited and learned and prepared while appearing weak. Lisa smiled encouragingly at the boy. That's an excellent observation. After class, Lisa met with Kevin Ford, who had left military service to become a teacher on this mixed-species colony world. They're adapting well, Kevin said, watching the children play together in the courtyard. Even the Zarthak children. It can't be easy for them, coming from a culture that prized dominance. Lisa nodded. The youngest ones will grow up with a different perspective. That's why these joint colonies are so important. I tell them the same thing I tell all my classes, Kevin said. The mistake wasn't underestimating human technology or military capability. It was underestimating human restraint. For years we had the means to fight back but chose diplomacy. When that patience finally ran out, centuries of human ingenuity compressed into months of action. He watched the children playing, human and alien together. The lesson isn't that humans are dangerous when provoked, though we are. It's that any species capable of such extended patience is capable of equally extended planning. Never mistake restraint for weakness. On the observation deck of Cooperative Headquarters, Admiral Daniels stood beside the former Zarthak Grand Admiral Kevlar. After his capture during the battle, Kevlar had surprised everyone by becoming an advocate for reform within Zarthak society. Now he served as an advisor on reconciliation efforts. They watched through the massive windows as vessels from multiple species worked together to construct a new research station. Human engineers worked alongside Bellari designers and even Zarthak builders. I still don't fully understand, Kevlar admitted. Even with your explanation during my surrender, I struggle to comprehend how humanity advanced so quickly once challenged. Mary considered her response carefully. Throughout human history, our greatest innovations came during our greatest challenges. World wars led to medical breakthroughs. Space race competition led to technological leaps. Natural disasters sparked new engineering solutions. She gestured toward the construction project. When you isolated us and threatened our colonies, you created exactly the conditions under which humans perform best. Unified by a common threat, motivated by protecting our families, and faced with a challenge that required innovative solutions. Kevlar watched the construction for a long moment. The Zarthak believed dominance came from strength alone. We failed to understand that true strength often looks like weakness to those who don't know better. As the sun set behind them, casting the station in golden light, the former enemies stood side by side watching the future being built. The greatest weapons humanity brought to this conflict weren't your ships or your strategies, Kevlar said finally. They were virtues we dismissed as weaknesses: patience, restraint, and the willingness to endure hardship without immediate retaliation. Admiral Daniels smiled slightly. Perhaps that's the most important lesson for all species going forward. In a universe of differences, understanding what truly constitutes strength may be our greatest challenge and our greatest opportunity.